and welcome to Ancient Arts for Modern Times. I'm Sifu Michael Fuchs, and our very special guest tonight is Grandmaster. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Glenn Newth.
Grandmaster Glenn Newth, Sifu Glenn. First of all, the show, what we do in Ancient Arts for Modern Times is we explore like Asian martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, various traditional healing arts like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, anything that ties into arts like that have been around really for millennia and are still pretty new in our culture. So we highlight these arts, we explore them, and then bring expert guests such as Sifu Glenn here to chat about them. Okay, so again, tonight we're presenting Sifu Glenn Newth here, who is a veteran of the arts. I myself have almost 40 years now in Chinese and Filipino martial arts, meditative arts, Qigong, Reiki healing arts, and I've worked professionally in many different settings as a integrative medicine consultant and on, and wrote some books, and always had the idea. I was on various shows like this years ago, and I figured, well, let's try to get a show going to, again, highlight and educate the public. And so, Glenn, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You started training, what, 1971?
72.
72, okay.
It was a year after I got out of high school.
Okay. And what was it that kind of spurred you to begin your training?
I always had an interest in martial arts, looking on it in television, etc. When I was younger, a teenager, I always wanted to learn. I lived in a small town, and we only had one school at the time.
Wow.
And
is that in Connecticut?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They were more into tournaments and sport karate, which is fine, nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And then one day, in 1972, I was heading to work, and I saw a new martial arts school just open. So when I had chance, I stopped in and met the teacher, and his focus was more on self-defense and combat training than going into tournaments. So I decided that was what I was looking for and started classes with him. He taught Yan-Chan karate and another app called Jukido, which is a combination of judo, karate, and aikido.
Was this Paul Arell?
Paul Arell was one of Bob Xavier's teachers.
Oh, this was Bob Xavier, okay.
Sensei Bob was my teacher.
I see, okay.
And Paul Arell was one of his teachers. Bob had first learned jiu-jitsu, and at that time he was located in California. Then he actually had a black belt in that. Then he came back to Connecticut and joined Paul Arell School.
Okay, if I may, these gentlemen that we're talking about, these are two of the early pioneers in Connecticut of the martial arts. So I think this gentleman, Grandmaster Arell, I mean, from the 40s and 50s, he was on Johnny Carson. And anyway, so these are some of the very, even earlier than Sifu Glenn in the arts. It sure has changed since those days. I know I myself, when I first got involved, I wanted to start learning Tai Chi in the 80s. There was no school in the phone book. I had to search to find a teacher. It's changed quite a bit since those days.
Oh, absolutely. When I met Sensei Bob, he had just begun studying the art of Wai Tai Chi. Wai is a rare style. It's often known as Luhubafa, which means 6 combinations, 8 method boxing. It's an internal art, much like Tai Chi. Mm-hmm. Some people say it's different, but the origins of Tai Chi go back to like around 500. And a lot of the original internal arts developed between 500 and 1000 AD.
And you're talking about in China?
Yes.
In ancient China?
Yes. Most of them come from northern China.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wai supposedly was created by a famous Taoist monk. His name was Chen Yi. And he lived on, that's why it's called this, he lived on the Waiyu Mountain, or Mount Hua, it means Waiyu Mountain.
Can you spell that for us?
Waiyu is H-W-A-Y-U, 2 words.
Okay.
And Yu itself means beautiful within, and Washan would mean Yu Mountain.
Okay, beautiful. And you're the lineage head of this art over here in the United States, is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
Okay.
Back in around 1980 or 81, Mr. Lee, that's what he preferred to be called. He didn't like to be called master or Sifu.
So he's talking about the person, the head of his name was John Chung Lee, who was a very legendary figure in martial arts in New England. And again, another came from Hong Kong, is it?
Yes, he lived his life in Hong Kong
and
before
he brought
came
this
here.
art here. So go ahead, continue.
Anyway, where was I? Let me go into a little bit about John Lee.
Yeah.
He lived in Hong Kong all his life. He studied martial arts. He started when he was in school. He trained a system called Tom Tui, which was taught. It's a Northern Shaolin style taught in all the schools that are in China. And then, as he got a little bit older, he got into Tai Chi. He learned Wu style Tai Chi, and then Yan style Tai Chi.
Awesome.
The family styles. And then he met Chen Yiren, who was a student of Wu Yihe, and Chen taught the Lu Habafa. And Master Lee started studying with him. And he liked the art, like many people who get into Lu Habafa, liked it so much that he changed his focus to that. And Mr. Lee also had learned a little bit of what's called Yiquan, which is another internal art that's created by a teacher named Wang Xingzai. And
if I may, so these are two books on what Sifu Glenn is talking about. These are books of his on Yu, if you wanted to check these out and read up on them. And one thing, as you can see from this little introduction he's giving, in Asia, these arts are very widespread in the culture, and people learn them like here. They're going to learn wiffle ball and softball and soccer. Everyone's doing this, and then some people, of course, get into it very professionally, and there's styles that are very popular and well known, and then there's others that are more rare, like the Yu style.
Yeah, you go to the park every evening or morning in China, and it's full of
people.
Different people
right.
doing some hard style martial arts and many different types of internal, Xingyi, Bagua, Tai Chi.
You know, let's talk about that a little, because I think most people are probably not so familiar with what is internal martial art, what is external, what is soft martial art, what is hard. These are just classifications of different styles of martial arts. So why don't you go ahead and maybe talk about that a little bit? Since you do both, you do both, right?
Yes, you know, I have studied karate and Jiu-Jitsu throughout my whole life since 1972.
These are harder styles.
Those are considered external or hard style. Shortly after I met Sensei Bob Xavier, I asked him if I could go to the Tai Chi class with him. As I mentioned, he had just started studying with Master John Lee. And Bob said, of course. So I went to that class, and I've been doing that ever since.
Okay, so it obviously spoke to you.
Anyway, hard style, a lot of people want to make it complicated. It works from the outside in.
Right.
You work muscles. Everything relies on strength and speed and power using the exterior muscle. Internal works from the inside out. The whole body combines. We focus on a point 2 inches below the navel that we call the danchin. That's the center of gravity. All our weight and thought sinks to that one point, the danchin, and all our movement will then radiate out from that point. In the internal, the breathing and the mind combined with the movement. And then when you get that, the blood circulation will also combine with the movement, so the whole body is working as one. That's what internal are. Even the breath has to combine with the movement. To begin, I'll capture a breath, I'll inhale. When I inhale, I start at that danchin and fill up the abdomen and then the chest. And as I breathe in, I capture a breath, then I'll exhale and let the hands float up. Then I'll inhale, and everything stretches in different directions, and then I exhale and everything collapses. So everything is integrated, it works together.
Excellent. And what they found is, see, we're talking about internal martial art and external martial art, but these internal, so-called internal arts are just fantastic for health. So you don't really need to worry about like fighting, like martial arts. Again, there's many different styles. So there's styles for people who want to go out and butt heads and do all that, and then many people in it, I mean, they're not really fighting. They're doing it for health of mind. It's meditative. It's, as Sifu Glenn says, helps your circulation, and so maybe you could speak about that a bit and the health benefits of this.
In internal art, it's always done relaxed and soft, and that's one of the things of an internal art. Being soft and moving slowly, you train the whole muscle. When you move fast, you're just using the surface tissue, the muscle fibers that are on the surface. Mm-hmm. When you move slow, you get in deeper into the muscle and you train the whole muscle.
Ligaments, tendons, the bones,
yes,
everything, right?
Right, then it goes into the sinews, the ligaments and tendons, and everything becomes strong. Mm-hmm. You know, if I arm wrestle someone, I'm not real strong. Many people are stronger than me, but my tendons are so strong, people have a hard time moving me.
Absolutely.
After 50-something years of practice.
My teacher's body on the surface is very soft, but when you push in, like say even in his neck, it feels like he's got steel. His tendons, they're flexible, but they're so strong. It's wild.
Being soft, they call it feng song, softness. Right. And being soft helps you create movement. And life is movement. If you sit still, your body deteriorates. If you move, everything in your body is moving. All the different chemical reactions, the blood flow, everything, the breath filling your body with oxygen. And that's good for health.
Feels nice too.
Oh yeah,
feels great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And it brings nutrients and oxygen to every cell in the body. Mm-hmm. Which is really important to maintain good health. Now, some things like Michael is into Reiki and uses the energy to help heal people. My teacher used to say, you know, make yourself healthy so you don't need the doctor. Do your exercise.
Sure. Well, with the Reiki too, of course, that's the first level, is we're healing ourselves, working with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm.
That's why I asked you about it. I don't know a lot about how that works.
Oh, okay.
Maybe someday I'll get to learn.
We'll do it. We'll definitely. I'd love to chat with you about that. Okay, so that's fascinating. Now, maybe you could tell us about the Yan Chuan karate, because that's, again, that's something that, you know, everyone's heard of karate. In fact, karate is pretty much synonymous with martial arts here in the United States. You know, if I say, well, I'm doing kung fu, someone else might say, well, he does some kind of karate. Of course, karate is Japan. Kung Fu, you know, China. But maybe you could talk about the Yan Chuan and what makes that unique.
That Sensei or Sifu Bob Xavier was my first teacher, and that he had done jiu-jitsu, and then he worked with Paul Arel. He did, Paul at that time taught Kyokushinkai karate, and also his own style, the Jikido, which was judo, karate, and aikido combined for self-defense.
That's a great blend, yeah.
It works a lot like Kempo. And what they did with this is they divided it into 3 zones. Certain arts like judo and aikido work great in close, and even jiu-jitsu. And in close was defined as someone grabbing you somehow, choking you, bear hug, wrist grab. All that was in close. The second range was the hardest one. That's where someone is able to reach out and hit you or grab you, but they're not touching you or making contact. That's the hardest one to defend, but there's precautionary.
That sounds counterintuitive for people who aren't trained. You might think someone grabbing you, like, oh no. But actually, when you have good training, when they grab you, it makes it easier.
You know where they are.
You know right where they are. You
They're
know where
committed.
their hands are. Right.
But when they're standing close and they're not committed, then it's dangerous.
It can be more, absolutely.
You have to take precaution.
So I'm sorry. So and then zone 3?
Zone 3 is out of reach, like in most sparring contests, trying to approach the kick or punch.
Right, from farther range.
Yes.
Okay.
So karate works good for third range. They have some closer techniques. Judo, Aikido, those are great for in close.
So the Yanchuan is taking these arts and kind of blending them all together.
Yes.
And then, isn't there some influence of the Chinese arts as well?
Yeah, well, that's where the Yanshan comes from. When I met Mr. Xavier, he was calling it Kyokushinkai Karate and Jikido, and little by little, after working with Master Lee, he started incorporating some of the principles from YU into his other arts, and it got so it no longer looked like the original Kyokushinkai.
Sure.
So he said to Mr. Lee, I don't know what to call this because it's not really Kyokushinkai anymore.
Sure, it changed, it evolved, right.
And Mr. Lee gave him the name. He said, call it Yanchan, which means soft fist.
Now the Kyokushinkai, my instructor trained in that as well. In fact, he got his black belt in 1966. The founder of that was a very, very famous karate master from Japan, Masayama, who back in the day was just very, very famous. He would put on demonstrations of fighting and take on all comers day after day. He was really tremendous. So that was a very famous style back in the day.
It still is. It's very popular all over the
Yeah,
world.
It's a great style, right?
Good hard style karate.
Absolutely. Okay, excellent. So listen, thanks for sharing on your arts. Now let's get into, you've obviously had a long career. You've done many things. What are some experiences you've had, working with the public or maybe meeting other practitioners and networking?
Yeah, I've taught a lot of different people. I had schools back in the 1980s and had a lot of students. And then in the early 1990s, some friends of mine all got together and they got a financial backer, and we opened a summer camp for martial arts. That was in 1993. It was called Otis Ridge Camp for Martial Art. It ran for 8 weeks every summer.
This was a kids' summer camp for children. Yes, okay, awesome.
It was for children like age 5, 6, up to about 16.
Beautiful. And
usually 16 through 19 were counselors.
Right, okay.
And,
so all the ages were kind of together learning?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, whenever possible, we would split it up. We'd have the younger kids in one group and the older kids in another. If we had the staff available to do that, it was preferable.
Absolutely.
We had judo teachers, aikido teachers, karate teachers, kung fu teachers.
And how long was the camp?
It ran for 10 years, and each summer was 8 weeks.
8 weeks, okay. Awesome. Up in Massachusetts, like out in the woods somewhere?
Yeah, it was at a camp.
Yeah.
And we had a core group of about, I'd say, 20 youngsters who came every year.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Many of those people they're still close friends today. It was an amazing program. And one day they would have Aikido class, the next day they'd have a judo teacher, the next day a karate teacher, and they train on that one technique all day, and next day would be something different.
That's outstanding.
We had a swimming pool so they could have some recreation.
Yeah, that's beautiful, outstanding. And you had some notable guest instructors.
Yes, yes. So over the years we had many notable guest instructors. Bill Wallace, Superfoot, came a few times, and
Bill Superfoot Wallace was, again, and one of the early pioneers, and he was a tournament fighter. And as you could guess, this man could kick so well, they just started calling him Superfoot. No one could beat this guy. You knew what was going to happen. So I only met him once, but you must have been able to interact with him.
I worked with him a bit, and those kicks come in fast. Oh, he's a clown. He's funny.
He's a riot.
Joe Lewis is another one. Joe Lewis is one of the greatest fighters I ever met.
Karate Joe Lewis, not the boxer.
Yes, one of the greatest fighters I ever met, and he was also a very nice fellow and full of jokes. Southern boys, And Michael DiBasquale used to come. He taught jiu-jitsu, of course, and Larry Tan was another one. He taught kung fu.
Now, the jiu-jitsu that he's talking about, this is a more traditional Japanese stuff. Nowadays, when you hear jiu-jitsu, very popular is the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is kind of a
It was an MMA.
right. So it's a different kind of thing. So De Pasquale family, again, I met him once too. They're very, again, great pioneers and promoters of the arts. I think from New Jersey.
Yes.
And all over the East Coast.
Back
all over the place.
back when they first came, Michael De Pasquale Sr., who was really amazing, he
Very
came
nice
a few
man. I
times,
met him
but
once. Very nice man.
unfortunately they're both gone now.
Passed away.
And I wanted to go into YU a little bit more.
please, yeah.
I mentioned that Chen Yi was the founder of the art.
It's a Taoist saint. Pretty
Yes.
Much, yeah.
And he taught the art to some of the other Taoists who lived in his area on Mount Hua. And then another fellow named Li Dongfeng went to Mount Hua in search of Chen Tuan or Chen Yi's legacy. And he found Chen Yi's cave where he lived, and he found his manuscripts. And with the help of some of the monks there, he was able to learn the art of Luha Bafa Yu. Now, why it's called that? The real name of the art is Yu Luhu Bafa, or Yu Yin Yi Luhu Bafa. It means mind intent, 6 combinations from the Yu mountain.
Okay.
And I mentioned that Tai Chi goes back way, way before.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in Yu or Luha Bafa, it has elements that you would find in Tai Chi. It has elements you would find in Xing Yi, and it has elements you would find in Bagua.
Okay.
But-
These are other Chinese arts, somewhat related to Tai Chi.
Yeah, they're also internal art.
Internal arts, right? That became fused together into this.
Now, some people will get confused and think, oh, it's a combination of those other arts. Well, no, it's not.
Right.
Because the Luhu Bafa came hundreds of years before.
Uh-huh.
And what you find when you find aspects that are Xingyi or Bagua, they're refined a lot more than you'll find anywhere else. They're very sophisticated
Okay.
movements.
So this is like more of an original mother style.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes,
And these other arts came later. Mhm.
yeah, because YU is credited as being from 960 AD,
Right.
and Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Bagua several hundred years later.
And for those who don't know, Taoism is an ancient philosophy, really predating civilization in China, going way, way back. Most people here, maybe you've heard of Lao Tzu or the Tao Te Ching, if you've heard of Taoism. And it was very, very influential in Chinese culture in general, on these arts.
You know, and we talk about internal arts. What are internal arts? Well, what they did is they took Qigong exercises. Qigong are slow exercises focusing on breath control, very much like yoga.
Right.
And they combined Qigong with martial arts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's what the internal martial arts are. Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned before, they can be done focusing on the health aspects of it. They also can focus on the martial aspects of it.
Yep.
And it's up to you. Now, a lot of
You
people...
know, it's interesting you mentioned this because it's really kind of the first time we've met a little bit, but this is often how I'll describe Tai Chi to people is imagine if you took yoga and meditation and Kung Fu and kind of combined it all. And it can be approached, as Sifu Glenn is saying, from any of those directions and more.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of people think, oh, I learned Tai Chi, I'm going to know how to fight. No. The only way to learn how to fight is to fight.
You have to fight, right? Yeah. You can have beautiful forms and know all the theories, but if someone comes in, now what?
Yes.
Right. So, yes, very true. So, well, anything else you'd like to chat about or mention about your journey in martial arts?
It's been...
How would you relate these to people nowadays? Why would they want to train in Tai Chi or martial arts?
Well, let's start with children.
Beautiful.
I mean, why would children want to learn martial arts so they could beat up everybody? No. It's about self-development, improving yourself. You know, it teaches kids how to have discipline and focus so they can succeed and excel in other aspects, their schoolwork, other sports. It gives them confidence. Now, the first thing that you would focus on with youngsters, I mean, I'm going 5, 6, 7 years old now, is spatial awareness, being aware of their body, and being aware of their body in relation to other individuals. And those are the kind of things. Then you want to focus on...
You know, that's important even like when you're saying children, but with seniors.
Yeah, oh
that's
yeah.
another one.
Yeah.
I often, when I'm teaching people, I said, if you just are more aware of your environment and what's going on around you, you're at an advantage there.
And then after that, you want to start focusing on movement education, teaching them how to use their body, how to move, how to balance, and all
Breathing.
that. Yeah, combining the breathing, and that's all to make you healthy. Now, I can tell you, in my own experience, you know, when I was younger in school, I always had a hard time focusing. I don't know if I had ADD or what. They didn't define it back then. But after doing martial arts for several years, I learned I can focus for long periods of time. And back when I was younger, I would have a hard time remembering things, and now I'm 71 years old. I can remember things I could have never remembered when I was 21 years old.
You know, it's so true. I mean, I know myself, I was a guy when I was younger, like swinging from the shin. I had so much energy. It was hard, and I love to read, but now I tell people I don't really get bored. I could just kind of sit here and breathe. It's interesting to me. So now you won't all end up like that if you train in these arts, you know. But anyway, but yes. So yeah, martial arts done properly for children in Asia. I mean, it's really regarded as one of the greatest things children can do when it's done properly. And of course, now in our country, it's huge. I mean,
it's spread. You know, when I began Tai Chi with Mr. Lee. There were only 1 or 2 other teachers around in Connecticut at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few in Boston and a few in New York.
So he was in Connecticut at the time?
Well, his main school was in Boston.
Right, okay.
When he first came to the U.S. from Hong Kong, he came to West Hartford.
Really? Okay, so that
And
was
he
one
was
thing
here.
I wanted to how did you meet him? So
Yeah,
okay.
a friend of ours that we knew who was located in West Hartford helped him get with his immigration,
Okay.
and he was set up with a job to work in West Hartford for a while.
Okay.
And then
Wow.
he got some help to open the school up in Boston, in Chinatown.
That's amazing.
But when he was here, he developed a liking for this little Christian church, so he liked to come back every weekend to attend churches. So he would teach here in Hartford on weekends.
Mr. Lee was a Chinese grandmaster who was well versed in Taoist philosophy and arts and a devout Christian.
Yes.
Which is quite interesting.
They actually had a fellow in Hong Kong who was a Luo Bafa and also their Taoist mentor. His name was Ho Tim. He was...
Did you ever get to Hong Kong?
I have never been there,
Okay.
no. I have, a lot of my friends have been there, and
They came to you here.
every year they have a big, well, not every year, every other year, it's biannual, they have a big Luo Bafa gathering in China. A lot of my friends who I know throughout the world have gone there. I have never made the trip.
Okay. Well, still, it's great that you're connected to that community.
Yes.
You know, where we're here, maybe people don't know so much about
I get
Luo Bafa.
I get invitations to it every year, but unfortunately it's an expensive trip.
Sure. Well, hopefully you get there one day. So, okay. So now, what about training in the arts for seniors or middle-aged people
Well,
who might be the main audience here?
middle-aged people, I mean, it's great relief from your job. Most people who are middle-aged have work and a lot of stress-related issues, which will become a problem when you get a little bit older if you don't do something about it.
Stress. People don't understand how many illnesses and problems are directly from stress. You know, maybe I have stress and I eat the wrong food and I drink and I can't sleep at night, you know? So yeah, just the stress
Absolutely.
relief is...
So
outstanding.
learning martial arts is great for relieving stress. It's great for conditioning the body, getting the blood and oxygen moving, and
Yeah.
it's good for all that. It also teaches you to get out of your head.
Right.
You know, people always thinking, worrying about all different myriad of things.
Absolutely.
And it teaches you to center and focus and clear your mind. Having a clear, alert mind is really important. And that's a great stress reliever in itself.
You know, I often think of learning the arts as kind of like an owner's manual for ourselves, our mind and body and energy. It's something we weren't really taught.
Makes you become self-aware.
Self-aware.
And another important thing on middle-aged people is that it will keep your joints flexible and healthy. You know, I have so many people I'm associated with or acquainted with who are, once they got in their 50s and 60s, their knees started to go, the hips started to go, the back gave them problem. Practicing martial arts regularly
properly.
will eliminate a lot of that problem.
You know, I've been through that process myself. I was becoming very ill when I was young, and knew about the arts from, again, I was always interested, and got involved in Tai Chi training and other martial arts, and the various health issues I had after training for a while just went away. It was amazing.
It is.
And now I'm 60, and I'm not elderly, but you know, I need to lose some weight, but I feel great. I sleep well at night. So it's very outstanding. So, you know, I think the thing is for people is to understand there's so many different, you know, paths and styles and methods. You just, if it's something you're interested in, you look around, you meet people, and you see if, you know, if it makes sense to you and
finding
it feels good.
Finding a teacher in a school that fits you is important.
Yes, finding a good teacher, and what you'll know if it talks to you, then you can try it.
You know, and then when we get to seniors, older people, you know, it's good for older people to get moving as much as they can and continue moving.
And just also the social aspect, getting out and about. And
one thing about internal arts is that it strengthens the bones. You know, I mentioned that it increases blood circulation. And what happens when you increase blood circulation? Well, the red blood cells are made inside the bone marrow. So when you strengthen the bones or increase circulation, they work together.
Absolutely.
The bones strengthen as you increase the circulation. And Tai Chi and internal arts require a lot of work standing on your legs, often balancing on one leg, load bearing. And when you put load on your legs that much, it makes the muscles healthy and it strengthens the bones.
Absolutely.
So it's wonderful for older people to do that, and it helps create balance so they can walk better and not have so many falls and get hurt.
You know, again, in Asia, they've known about this for centuries, and now here there's been many studies that have shown what Sifu here is talking about, that it really is tremendous for health.
Even Harvard Medical School has a book out all about the benefits of Tai Chi, and Emory University down south, they've done a number of studies of different aspects of Tai Chi. There's a site on the internet called PubMed. You can look up all of that stuff.
There's also a great group called American Tai Chi and Qigong Association, and they work with the UN. They have tremendous information there. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for being our guest here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It's been our pleasure and our honor to have you here. If you ever, you know, see Sifu out and about, I couldn't recommend more highly as an instructor. And I want to thank you so much, and I want to thank the audience for being here. And till next time, thank you so much.